we should be incentivizing young people to get married and have children because we need families for society. So this first one is called Why Our Generation Doesn't Care About Anything Anymore. It is by the channel Jet Franson. And as mentioned last weekend, guys, I have listened to a few of this young man's videos. He has a lot of insights and I suppose wisdom for his age. And so with that, we'll just play it and see where he goes with it.
Our generation does not care about anything anymore. We've grown exhausted to the point of almost learned helplessness, and so that's why we pretty much don't care. Nothing feels worth caring about anymore.
Learned helplessness. I think this guy is in his early or mid 20s, guys. So I think he is considered Gen Alpha or Gen Z. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I think I'm a millennial. I'm 36, so that's after me is Gen Alpha, and below that, my daughter's 17, so I think she would be considered Gen Z. So I'm not sure. This guy might be Gen Alpha, but so just for context, for you guys out there wondering.
It's not that we're lazy, it's just that we've been disillusioned, because you're pretty much told from a young age, if you work hard and you do honest work, you're going to have a good life. But reality is starting to kick in for a lot of us, where it's like, if you work hard, oftentimes you can barely stay afloat. When effort doesn't match the reward, motivation dies. And now you couple that with constant stimulation with, your phone. You can just have social media. You can get dopamine hits from pretty much anything at your fingertips nowadays. It makes real life feel so dull. We're in this sort of hazy state as a whole generation, and ultimately nothing is fulfilling anymore. Everything feels temporary. So jobs, relationships, trends, nothing lasts. People like to chase quick hits, right? They want the six-pack now. They want money, fastest way to get rich. They want attention, clicks, instead of actual meaning. The system tends to reward surface level success, not depth. If you can appear successful, that's the ultimate goal, not actually being successful. And so
that's interesting. You can appear successful. That's better than actually being successful. And I think it's a reoccurring loop, right? It like feeds into itself. Kind of what he was saying was there's no satisfaction or fulfillment in it. And in a sense, I think maybe from the American view, I can see this is similar to the lady that we responded to last week, talking about the system, kind of this, the system, which can be very vague, right? You can sympathize with the idea, but then, where the rubber meets the road, sometimes from the perspective can be very different from, say this man and his versus his brother, or versus his father, or versus their grandfather or cousin, right? Like the perspectives are going to be, they can be wildly differing.
So this takes a toll on the psyche of individuals. When everything becomes a performance, and when that performance is inherently unfulfilling, you're kind of left wondering what is there to life. And so you stop caring. You either turn into a nihilist or an absurdist. Either, nothing makes sense and that sucks, or nothing makes sense, so who cares?
Yeah, and this will connect with our last video too, guys. I think, again, from kind of the worldview perspectives, right? There's kind of two that we may be looking at. A humanist, we evolved from monkeys and goose, versus, some sort of creationist, theist, God created us. We have purpose, we have meaning. The other one, it's hard to find these concrete things, right? Meaning, purpose, and then what for if we just turn into worm food at the end, right? I don't know what this young man's views are from the videos that I've seen. I don't know his perspectives in that sense, but definitely you can relate. This kind of goes back to our hyper individualistic society in America and capitalism, keeping up with the Joneses, as I mentioned in the last video, in like the 90s, early 2000s, right? The Ponzi schemes, the get rich quick schemes, right? Because we all want to go on vacation and what makes us happy and what makes us feel good. That's pretty much what people chase, right? And that's all on social media now, the ecosystems of likes and shares and followers and things like that. And I totally get it because I'm on YouTube, and yes, I look at analytics, right? But I'm not totally black-pilled, so we'll share a little bit more after we hear a bit more from him.
Either way, nothing makes sense. Like nothing inherently has meaning, is what it feels like.
I think one specific example I'll give, right, and like I said, our daughter's 17. We're kind of looking at her future, college, military. What I worked in corporate America for a little bit before I became a truck driver, and I think we've all kind of been sold these goods, right, of go to college and you get this degree, this piece of paper, and you get this job, and you get paid a lot of money. And I think a lot of young people, and with the economy, right? The economy ebbs and flows, it's up and down. You're not always guaranteed what, every single person is not guaranteed this successful story that they all paint in the movies or the pictures, right? Because I'm pretty sure we all know people that work super, super hard and maybe they don't make a ton of money. They're not rich. You think about people in third world countries that are working, farm fields or what have you, coffee bean fields, and they're not rich people, but I guarantee they're working a lot harder than many of us here in the States, right? But this is the land of opportunity if you can create a product that people want. You think about Shark Tank. Shark Tank has been a huge staple in our country, right? And in the world probably for the past decade or two, where you can create a sponge and become a billionaire, right?
If you do what you're told, if you go to school, if you put in honest, respectable work,
here it is.
Get an internship, put your name out there, network, get a job. There's like a 98% chance you're just not going to enjoy what you do. Like I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know. I mean, I don't know a lot of people in general, but I don't know anybody that actually truly enjoys what they do.
I'm going to push back on them a little bit here, guys. When I worked in corporate America, quote unquote, I did enjoy what I was doing. I have an associate's degree in accounting. I worked for a collections agency, a small family-owned firm, and thoroughly enjoyed my job. But I went to go get my CDL because it was either that or go back to school for accounting, because at that particular time in the economy and where we were at in the market, my associate's degree, I was basically capped. I was salary capped. And so we do always need to keep learning and adapting and growing. Otherwise, we will come to that place. And the people I enjoyed with, whether it was IT or, you name it, even the people in the call center, many of them thoroughly enjoyed what they were doing. At least that's what I perceived anyways. This guy works alone in his basement. So, but there are people that are miserable at their jobs on the other hand too, right? So there's kind of the two ditches of the road.
There is a death of the American dream. The traditional formula is broken, right? Like there's some statistic, and I'm going to botch this, but it's like for the minimum wage to equate, the purchasing power that they had in I believe it was the 60s or the 70s, you'd have to be earning $77. And by the way, this statistic is from like 2 years ago. So it's probably like in the 80s, potentially 90s now.
Yeah, I think I seen a similar stat or video recently, not 2 years ago, but recently, and it was close to that, right? The poverty level, or he said minimum wage. But yeah, guys, 60 or 70, and that's inflation in our economy. And again, when we're chasing this ultra capitalistic society without any kind of guardrails, and I'm not a big government interventionist type of guy, and then our fiat currency, and I don't know a lot about the Federal Reserve, but I haven't heard good things when you just start printing money out of nowhere that can damage the the economy or the ecosystem or whatever you want to call it. I used to, I got a job. Like I said, I'm 36, started working 22 years ago, mowing lawns. And even when our daughter was born, I thought $50 an hour was, like millionaire status. And it is a good wage, don't get me wrong. But at my truck driving job, I'm probably getting close to that number. And our one income household with 3 people our budget is tight. Budget's tight. So I can understand what he's saying. You used to think $1,000 a week. Wow. What I could do with that, right? That was like the dream millionaire status. And then when you think about it, $1,000 a week is 52K a year gross after 30% taxes, where it goes quick when you're looking at gas prices today, food prices today.
You'd have to earn $77 an hour for minimum wage to be able to afford a home. That's like, bro, and every time I'm if you're watching this video, you're likely somewhere around my age. You know how it is. You talk to older people and it's just they're just like, oh, your generation's not working hard enough, or like you're all just distracted on your phones, you're doing this or that, you're lazy. They don't have a clue, bro. It would take like
and I don't want to be on that side, guys, right? So like I said, I'm in the middle of the boomers. My parents would be boomers or Gen X. Our small townhouse was $100K in 2017. The homes that they're building in my town, we could never afford. Townhomes starting in the 300s, single family homes starting in the 500s. My wife could work the same exact job that I do, and with our 2 incomes, if she did, we would not be able to afford the single family home that they're building, a mile from my house here. No shot. There's no shot. Our elderly lady neighbor, her house was built in 1960. She said that her and her husband paid $19,000 for it. And I think Zillow has it, estimated at $360. I suppose that's kind of a decent price. It's a bigger house. I don't know exactly how many rooms and bedrooms, but it's probably your typical like single family home. Again, it was built in the 60s, but it's a decent sized house. It's not a mansion or anything like that, but maybe like 3 bedroom, 2 bath, main floor, basement, a big 2-stall garage, at least a half an acre fenced in backyard. So, but I'm super sympathetic to, again, our daughter's 17, and if I'm thinking about, her and hopefully a husband starting a family, I don't know how they're doing it, to be honest. I don't know what the future looks like in that sense. So I totally sympathize with this guy and Gen Z to follow. And we can say, they're on their phones and lazy or whatnot, but they're working, our daughter's working the same type of job that I was at that age. I think she's working hard. I know a lot of young people that are working hard, and with inflation, just the cost of living is just going up.
3 humans to equate, like nowadays, to equate what it took just one of them back then. And it's not like they're competing with AI. I'm going against a machine that can operate 1,000 times faster than me and significantly more efficiently and likely better than me.
Yeah, that's another aspect too that they did not have. That's a true point right there, 100%.
Right when I'm entering the job market. And a lot of people feel this way.
Yep.
Owning a home, raising a family, building some sort of stability, it feels out of reach. Back in the day, if you had a roommate, people were like, you're gay. Nowadays, if you have one roommate, they're like, wow, I'm surprised you don't have more. Like, that's where we're at.
Yep.
Older generations, a whole household could survive off of one income. Nowadays, that's not true. Nowadays, you need.
Yeah, we have survived on one income for the most part, guys. A family of 3, but it was always hard. You have to be super frugal, and that's finding deals. Like he said, with roommates or whatnot, renting from our manager or renting a super old house, or this townhouse that we're in now. It's small. Our mortgage is very low. We got in at a good time in the market with low interest rate. I can see the struggle. I don't want to say that we're completely an anomaly. I think it can still happen today. But the budget is going to be tough. You're not going to be, I know it's a meme and people don't like it, but you're not going to be having Starbucks every day and nails and hair and this and that. And
need the wife and the kids to be working to afford anything.
Yeah.
and then all of that is taxed. The government, loves it.
And it is a reason that young people are deciding not to have children or get married. I know we've kind of talked about that on the channel in the past, which is a bummer. That's unfortunate. I think it needs to be addressed and changed. We should be incentivizing young people to get married and have children because we need families for society.
The dream didn't evolve, but the world evolved, and that's the problem.
True.
There is certainly consideration about whether or not the older generations have failed us. They built systems that worked for their time, but they never adapted them. They didn't care enough because it wasn't going to affect them personally. Advice like just work harder, it's so out of touch, right?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And I don't know, you hear this sentiment a lot, right? That the boomers screwed us over. They didn't care about us. I mean, these are our parents and grandparents that we're talking about, and who was in control, right? I mean, if you ask your grandparents if they care about you, I'm sure they would say yes, infatuately, right? But again, things like the Federal Reserve and again, I don't want to call for, huge government intervention, but you think about the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare system, right? I know that these systems were created in their time, but I don't know that, my grandma she had no hands in those things being created. I mean, maybe you could say that, they should have fought against them or what have you, but I think, like he said, they've evolved, right? The world has evolved. The dream hasn't evolved. The world has evolved, and some of those systems, unfortunately.
Policies and economic decisions that have been created essentially are promoting a wealth gap, rising costs, fewer opportunities. There is a growing disconnect between generations. One thinks we're entitled, the other thinks we're abandoned. It's absurd. What we're working towards is a two-faction system. You used to have the upper class, the middle working class, and the lower class. And now it's like 1% upper class and they own like 60% of the wealth, and then it's just like 2 to 3% middle class, and even those people, it's really just like the vast majority is the working class.
Yeah, I think so.
Everybody's just slaving away just to get by.
Yeah, I think we are going in that direction, and I don't know what the answers are. I see his point, and and some people say, there's an argument out there that but our poorest are richer than some of the rich people in again some of these third world countries, right? Like our poorest have cell phones, big screen, flat screen TVs, right? We got Snap, EBT, all these things that provide for even the poorest among us. I know the homeless, we kind of, some of these high populated areas have big homeless problems. I do acknowledge that.
The economy is breaking people mentally. Constant financial stress. It pretty much just leads to a burnout before life even starts. People deny milestones like moving out, marriage, kids. There are reports coming out that are saying
those are big milestones.
That I think it's like in 40 years from now, the average household will have 3 generations in it. So grandparents and their children and their children's children, right? That's going to be a household. But
maybe that'll be a good thing. Maybe we need to get back to that place, kind of, right? That's what it used to look like, right? America, we're relatively a young country. And I think this whole idea of like every single person needs to have this massive house and multiple vehicles, I don't think that's sustainable, nor is it really good for society. My wife, where she's from, her grandmother, her mother, and her aunt, and before her sister got married, they all lived in a house. And those generations can help each other in different ways, right? The younger can look after the elder have assets and knowledge and wisdom that they can share with the younger, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just kind of fiscally, but you think about relationally and emotionally, those are huge benefits.
When you think about it, this is...
And I know, like, maybe from this guy's perspective and from a lot of people's perspective, we're saying that, well, our economy and our financial systems are forcing people into that because everything's so expensive. And so I do get that.
It's just when all of this just negative human experience, or like this dull future in mind, is so prevalent and it's so in your face, especially when you're working towards something, you start to you're like, I don't care about anything anymore, you know. I can't win. It's like it's a losing game is what it feels like. And so yeah, we're sitting here and we're kind of pissed off as a generation, because it's like when we raise our kids aren't even going to have the um neighborhood experience. They're not going to be able to like go out on trick or treat in a neighborhood, because everybody's going to be living in an apartment complex, probably in the freaking projects, because nobody can afford, you know. Survival mode has replaced ambition, and with it we've destroyed the joys of life. And when you destroy the pleasures that God has, gifted us, such as spending time with friends and family, such as, being able to, buy things that make you feel good, that are like fruitful to the soul. When you can't do these things anymore, you're left with nothing but despair, and you stop to care as a sort of defense against the irrational nature of your reality.
I will say that the cost of things is stressful, but I think some of what he shares here, I think social media and the internet maybe is doing more harm than the economy in some of these aspects, right? Because when he says, I'm not for people growing up in the projects, but when you think about, when he mentions kids growing up and the social aspect with other kids or playing and with toys, like kids don't need a whole lot, right, to be happy or fulfilled. If we're talking about these as, objectives for a child, a soccer ball, which is 10, which, you could find them for free in some places, but for relatively cheap, a soccer ball can keep, a group of children entertained for hours, whether you're in an apartment complex or, I grew up in the trailer park. We're biking around, we're playing manhunt, we're playing basketball, we're playing baseball at the local diamond. Like, these things don't cost a lot of money, but they do require children to be able to go out, explore. I know, again, things have evolved, right? There's a lot more helicopter parenting. The news is all day, constantly, every day, and you see bad things happening on the news, right? So parents want a helicopter even more. But if you think about our childhoods in the 90s, early 2000s, running around town with your buddies, no money at all, no money necessary, and it was a great time.
It's hard to care about a purpose when you're just trying to survive. Beyond that, I mean, there's a moral decline. There's a value.
I also think, guys, like, there's people around the world that, they work and work and work. Like, we here in America, I think we have it so good that kind of we just get in this mentality. But when you think again about people that where my wife's from, or another country where they grow coffee beans, right? These people work those jobs from 15 to 60, and they don't complain, right? They don't complain about the economy or how stressful their days, their life is, or how complicated or hard it is, right? That's, again, kind of harkening back to my last video. All of us have to work to eat this lifestyle, or this life of putting your feet up on a beach, sipping mimosas all day, every day, and water parks and vacations. Even before the fall, God created us to work, right? The mandate was to be fruitful and multiply, and to work the earth and have dominion over it. And that was pre-fall. So work in itself is not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Value shift. Integrity is no longer rewarded. Visibility is. Attention is the new currency of the modern age, and you can just rage bait, you could lie, you could do whatever you want just to get attention. I myself am guilty of this, which is why I feel like a expert to talk on the topic.
Yeah, so it's some of that is a lot of that is true, and you could see it all over, right? When again, even the last video, right? We talked about fraudsters are making millions, frauding the system, right? Bad behavior is rewarded. We're law-abiding citizens, perfect credit, don't get in trouble with the law, and you seem to be punished. I understand where the sentiment comes from, but
yeah, people see fake people win, they see manipulators succeed, they see honest people struggle,
mhm.
and they kind of sit there and they're like, what's the point? This creates a mindset shift. Why be good if it doesn't pay off? And so then this leads to an inevitable.
Well, again, those two worldviews, right? The humanist, that question is certainly valid, but for those of us that do believe in God, you need to do the right thing regardless. Integrity is important, no matter if evil or bad behavior is being rewarded.
Moral decline, loyalty becomes replaced by clout. There's shortcuts to absolutely everything, and everybody just wants instant gratification.
Yep.
The dating market is cooked for us. If you are my age and you're watching this video, I know what you're talking about, especially if you're a man. Things just don't, like, everybody wants, they want all the benefits of a relationship without the commitment. They want all the reward with no risk. They don't, like, our generation, we're not faithful, we're not loyal. You see a lot of entitlement. It's annoying to be around. It's annoying when there is a lack of virtue in the social sense,
Yep.
People are becoming dumber. AI is doing the thinking for them, and that just leads people down a rabbit hole of, or like some sort of existential dread often.
Yep, myself included. I don't read as much as I should. I settle for mediocrity. I should be learning new things. And I think we're all susceptible to it. Can't really explain or articulate what, a solution, but I think a lot of what he's saying is kind of, if you hear about, in politics or what have you, certain things with the pendulum swinging right and left, and when it gets too far one way, it starts to come back. I think, I guess that's my hope, is a lot of what he's talking about, right, with this hopelessness and his generation with relationships, because again, our daughter is about to enter into her kind of adulthood, and we are hoping and praying for a good husband and family, if that's God's will for her life. But I have kind of heard this sentiment in younger people that they're just giving up.
And these things, like I said, they start to compound, they start to add up. People are not, you can't enjoy much. Trust overall is collapsing. People, they don't trust anymore.
Yep.
The institutions, academia, I just made a video about academia and how I think that's flawed. The media, we know that's
We'll have to check that one out. We'll have to check that one out in the future.
fake. Corporations, they're doing whatever they want to exploit people to make money, and we don't even trust each other. That's where we've gone. When trust disappears, so does the collective belief in anything bigger. When you lack a collective belief, I've recently made a video on this, which in most civilizations has been God. When you don't have that, everybody becomes, just does whatever their selfish desires want from them, and then they get eaten alive by these very desires. And you have conflicting interests, and those conflicting interests eventually lead to tension. And this tension leads to, sometimes violence, sometimes intellectual wars, culture wars.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that in our politics today. And totally 100%, I think our country was founded on God and Christian values. So I think that's why we've been the greatest country, but and we've been moving away from God quickly in the past few decades.
It just gets exhausting to live in a world where where everything's performative, where you have to be politically correct about everything, how anything you can do can be taken out of context or
Yep.
kind of intentionally misunderstood. And it's just, once again, it compounds. These things are beginning to add up, and it all ultimately has led to one thing, which is an overall identity crisis of our generation.
True.
When you have endless choices, you can choose anything you want. You have no direction. Without direction, you lack conviction, you lack drive, and you stop caring about anything.
But this can be a good thing because we can point people back to God when these things happen. When people have loss of identity or no hope, we do have hope in God. There's that saying of hard times create good men create good times, or something like that, right? With that loop, and we may be in that place.
People are being told that they can be anything, but given no structure to become something. If you want
I'm huge on structure. What did he say there?
to be
We're given everything but no structure.
People are being told that they can be anything, but given no structure to become something.
Okay. Yeah, like and I'm one of those guys that needs kind of to be told what to do. I joined the military, and I really enjoyed it because I liked the structure that it had, and kind of, again, being told what to do. I don't have like a engineering or entrepreneurial mind or a creative mind. I'm kind of better at task. Give me a task or teach me how to do it right. They taught us how to shoot. They taught us how to maneuver. And then you kind of execute, right? My mind kind of works more like that. I don't know the philosophy or all that behind it, but that's kind of how my mind works.
If you want to be the exception, I mean, you really have to figure out a way to stand out, and that's done by yourself. This all.
But in today's economy, that is what how people are making money. Like, this guy is exactly what he is talking about. He has a successful YouTube channel, and he is kind of like an outlier, right? He's doing something different. And I seen a YouTube channel that promotes a bunch of like entrepreneurs and things like that, and there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of channels like that, and very young people that are they're still making new businesses and being wildly successful, again, in this kind of capitalistic society where you can start with nothing and become very wealthy. So it is still possible, but like he said, you're going to have to be an outlier. You're going to have to work hard and make sacrifices, but it's not a guarantee, I don't think.
All in all, just leads to confusion. It leads to drifting. And as I've said over and over again, there's just an overall lack of purpose. Why should we care about anything when it never serves us? Why should I care about my job when I know that they're exploiting me for money? Why should I care about a relationship when I know that person is not going to be faithful when push comes to shove? Why would I care about the work I'm putting in now and trying to grow as a person when AI could easily just be taking my job soon?
Yeah, these are all valid complaints, but we have those freedoms in the U.S., right? I think, and when he talks about a job that's just exploiting you, like we do have that option to get a different job.
I'll end it by saying this. Maybe it's not that this generation doesn't care. Maybe it's that this generation has never been given something real to believe in. We've never been granted the opportunity to taste fulfillment or a pursuit of something that we know is going to be long lasting and, virtuous and brings us some sort of meaning. Without these things, it's hard to care about anything. If we bring back these things, that is when we will start to see a shift, a mindset change in a generation where we will finally begin to care.
Yeah. And I think this is possible, guys. Like, a lot of people are black-pilled in America, but like what he said, if we bring back these things, right? If young people can see that getting married and having children, having a family is incentivized, it's possible, and it's incentivized, then I think that can swing the pendulum back. And I think it can happen fairly quickly. You know, it will take generations, but I think it's possible, God willing, in our country, because our government, we've already seen, right? We can make these things. I did a video a long time ago, right around kind of when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, but it was about abortion. And our government can, you know, we write legislation and legislate morality all the time. If we just criminalize abortion and ban it, that's that. And when we incentivize marriage between one man and one woman in the tax code with benefits, things like this, these things can be turned around. But again, our society has been moving away from God and his values to hyper individualistic, right? Everybody can be whatever they want. There's millions of genders. People are trying to be animals. They're marrying inanimate objects. Things like this is no bueno for society. But that was, yeah, so that was the first video, guys. Let me know what you think. Jeff Franson, I'll link the video in the description. We'll check out some of the comments, and then we'll move on to our next video of the day. So this working hard just gets you exploited. We were born into a game of Monopoly where hotels are already on every square. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, with inflation and again, kind of the Federal Reserve and printing money. At this point, I am more excited about afterlife. So that is a huge thing, right? And for religious people, yeah, 100%. I mean, and we will live for eternity. So that is, you know, what we do here matters for sure. But the scriptures tell us that our life here is like a mist. It's like a vapor. It's here and it's gone in comparison to eternity, right? Which finite minds, we can't even hardly fathom. But yeah, 100%. What are some of the replies on this? You know, it's bad when you thinking beyond this dystopian society. Yeah, that depends on your perspective. I've been more excited about afterlife since I was 19. Now I'm 40. Yep, see? This is 100% a believer. What are 100 years compared to an eternity? Yep. Love is the key. Being an older Gen Z, 1998, okay, I'm going to high school. I'm being told, go to college or else you're a loser by every teacher, counselor, role model, and parent has really made me realize none of it mattered. Those who did go to college now have a massive pile of debt and an entry-level job at Walmart. But yeah, I think this guy, Ant Magic, his point, right? Just go to college, get a degree. And I think that it can be important, right? Going to school, you learn lessons, discipline. The debt, number one, the debt is a huge deal. And number two, you were not always guaranteed, you know, I think we get this piece of paper and then we're guaranteed this, you know, six-figure job or career. But I think people are seeing that, right? And for young men, right, going to the trade schools, I think this is where the pendulum, right? Like not everybody needs to go to like college and get some kind of corporate America. The trades and being a veteran, the military is an option. In the military, you can get your schooling paid for 100%. So even for our you know, our daughter is kind of looking into that as a possibility. I'm not depressed but I don't care if early anymore, and I don't fear death. When effort doesn't match the reward, motivation dies. Yeah, so we talked about that. They call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it, George Carlin. The world has definitely changed. Yeah, a lot of things have changed. The harder you work, the harder you work. Oh, wow. Yeah, dude. Yeah, see, this is real. Because I think people will complain a lot. It's easy for people to complain saying that they're working harder and that you're getting paid less, right? We've probably all seen the memes, right? Where if you work harder, your boss is just going to give you more responsibility, but they're not going to increase your pay. So don't work harder, right? That's what people say. But again, I think that's the privilege of the United States, probably specifically, or maybe the West. Like I said, in third world countries where they're working hard every day from sun up to sundown, right? The harder you work, the harder you work. That's just what it is, plain and simple. People are being told that they can't be anything but given no structure to become something. Yeah, that's what I was saying about joining the military. Follow your dreams, but only if your dreams involve making money. But like we've mentioned before, you have to work to pay bills, to provide, to feed yourself, even if there was no money, right? Take away paper, fiat, take away any money, right? Tomorrow, and say your corporate America job, blah, 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 your degree, all that stuff. For food, what are you going to do for food, right? A young man is going to have to go out and hunt and get the food, right? He's going to have to kill something, get the food, bring it home. They're going to have to clean it and cook it. Like, this takes time, energy. Again, like this thing, like feet up, sipping mimosas on the beach. Right? And again, even if you take away the corporate America and the corruption and all that stuff, right? Tomorrow, like, to get food to survive, or water, right? Think about fresh drinking water. People would have to work no matter, right? And again, biblically, from the scriptures, we see this from the beginning of time. You have to work to survive, and work is a good thing. It's not all bad. Playing music keeps me alive. Slowing down and stopping when necessary helps. Art is life. Work sucks. Yeah, see, but this is exactly what I was saying, guys. Art is life. Work sucks. Art has its place, but we all have to work, right? And music is awesome. It's a universal language, just like art. Slowing down and stopping when necessary. Yeah, rest. God rested on the seventh day. All right, but that finishes up our video, for our first video by Jet Franson, Why Our Generation Doesn't Care Anymore. Leave your comments down below, guys, in the video. Let me know what you think. Yeah, all right. Yeah, do I put in the AI robot now? Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Check out the video. Check out the video. Check out the video.